Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about something very interesting, and that is energy recharge on Nihility characters, and how we are close approaching a nuclear level on some characters where game balance is going to get a little bit spooky, from what I can see, at least from my perspective. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we are closely approaching a world in which certain characters are going to be able to use their ultimates pretty much every single turn, and they can already use them every other turn. So what does that mean? Well, every time you do an action like a skill, you'll be able to use your ultimate straight after, and then your next action, use a skill, ultimate straight after that as well. So it's literally like doing an ultimate every single action, which is quite frankly absurd. The implications of that are really nuts. We might get into in this video, but why is this happening now? What's causing all of this stuff? How are people getting so much energy recharge, and what is this? Is it free to play viable? Let's get into it. All right, so the culprit here is this new light cone which just got released in an event in patch 1.1. It's called Before the Tutorial Mission Starts. Every single player can get this for free right now. You just have to log in and be level 21 and do the Silver Wolf event, and you'll get it. You can get it all the way to Superimposition 5 in just about an hour or two if you complete the event, and it's insane. It is absolutely character, but also path defining. What do I mean by path? I mean the entire Nihility path. It defines it and it makes it way, way better. Every single Nihility character in the Nihility path can use this if you build your teams correctly. Now, what does it actually do? Well, it gives you a ton of effect hit rating, which is always welcome on Nihility characters because they all have debuffs without question. And in addition to that, it states here it grants the wearer 8 energy whenever they attack a defense reduced enemy. Now, this is completely absurd, and I'm going to show you guys exactly why that is. I've set up a scenario here in which the enemy has 4 debuffs on them, and my Silver Wolf has her ultimate available. And I want to show you guys how fast my Silver Wolf gets her ultimate back. So I'm going to use the ultimate here. Now I'm going to be using Eidolon 1 here, but I'm going to show you guys some examples of other characters who are insanely close to this as well. And you can see here, just by using my ultimate, I already have 57 energy back. If I was to use my skill, I get dangerously close to just having my ultimate instantly back again. It's on 102 energy here. Now, what makes this completely broken, and it's actually already possible to do, is that you can actually get the ultimate pretty much straight back up if you use a character with the Abundance Light Cone shared feeling, and it is at an appropriate superimposition level. Now, this is pretty crazy, right? I almost have my Silver Wolf's ultimate back up again, and I would have it back up again if I had a sprightly Von Wax set. I don't have that, and that is what's limiting me right now. If I had that, I could literally do the combo right now. I could go skill, ultimate, skill, ultimate, skill, ultimate on my Silver Wolf infinitely, and the enemy would just die, basically. It would be an overwhelming amount of break as well as damage. And that's really what I'm getting at here. It's kind of crazy. Now, normally this shouldn't be possible. Normally this can't happen. But there's a bunch of characters in the game right now who have a ridiculous amount of energy recharge, and it's causing us to get very, very close to this scenario in a lot of different areas. Now, the first example is, of course, Silver Wolf with Eidolon 1, but bear with me. I will show you guys some more use cases for this light cone, and I will discuss the future of it as well. So if you're a fan of Kafka, definitely stick around. But I want to share with you guys the concept behind it and how it actually works, so you guys can apply this to every character, because there's also other characters from other paths who are on the similar trajectory to achieving something pretty ridiculous as well. So let me get into it. All right, okay. So how is this happening, and what is actually going on here? Well, normally an ultimate in Honkai Star Rail, Silver Wolves is a good example, costs generally 100 to 110 energy. And you know, that's a pretty balanced number. And the reason I say that is because basic attacks generate 20 energy and skills generally generate 30. So to activate Silver Wolf's ultimate normally, it would be roughly 4 skills. And that would sound pretty normal, but how is that getting to 1 skill, and where is all that energy coming from? Well, let me give you guys a bit of info on that. So the first component is going to be flat energy. Flat energy comes from a lot of sources, but it's really not too accessible in terms of right right now. But there are some sources of it, and it is completely broken whenever they pop up. And that's why it really has become such an issue now, because of this free-to-play light cone granting so much. So a basic attack in Star Rail, as we know, now grants 20 energy. Adding an extra 8 energy to every basic attack is almost like getting 50% more energy from your basic attacks. Now, what's especially kind of crazy about this is that it just says when the wearer attacks, which means this doesn't just apply to basic skills, it applies to any attack, meaning it can apply to basics, skills, ultimates, and follow-up attacks. So this is just preposterous in my opinion, and it's just going to break the game now. Like, it's already really strong, but in the future I can't imagine a world in which this isn't just going to be completely egregious unless something is done about it. Now, let me explain a little bit more about why it is actually so exceptionally broken and how you can achieve such high energy recharge amounts. Regenerating 110 in one turn is definitely not normal. Okay, so flat energy recharge, really busted, but let's break down the exact math here. So when we use a skill, we get 30, and when we use an ultimate, you actually regenerate 5 energy straight after every single ultimate. Every character without exception will get 5 energy back immediately. So from our combo right now, we're only getting 35 energy, but because we're using the light cone here, we're getting an extra 16 from those 2 attacks. So when we use our skill and then we use our ultimate, that's 2 attacks, so we get 16 energy right there. So we've got 5 plus 30 plus 16. So right now we're at 51 energy. Now that's nowhere close to 110. So where's the rest of the energy coming from? Well, that's where Silver Wolf is a particularly large problem. They have given her Eidolon 1, which a lot of people are starting to realize is definitely a pretty interesting long-term investment for exactly what I'm talking about in this video. An absolutely ridiculous amount of energy recharge. It's 35 energy when the enemy has 5 debuffs on them. Now you might be thinking, 5 debuffs, that doesn't sound very easy to get. That doesn't sound very consistent. Well, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's actually exceptionally easy to get 5 debuffs on the enemy, even while swapping targets really often. It's absurdly easy. And the reason for that is that Silver Wolf's skill, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, applies a ridiculous amount of debuffs. It applies a implant, which is 1. It applies a bug, that's 2. It also applies a resistance shred, which for some reason is a separate debuff, so that's 3 just from 1 skill. And then if you have Eidolon 2, that's also a debuff, which is permanently pretty much on every enemy on the field. So that's 4, but that's not 5. So where's the 5th one come from? Well, another really crazy thing about Silver Wolf is that her ultimate applies her resistance shred before it actually hits. So that's 5. You can actually go skill ultimate and the enemy will have 5 debuffs on them every single time. Meaning this combo isn't just really strong if you set it up, it's strong all the time. Now, let's finish off our math though. So we're at 51. So we now know consistently you can get the 35 energy from E1 pretty much all the time, which is pretty crazy. So we add an extra 35 on top of that. And we're at, let's see, plus 35, we're at 86. So that's still not 110, but that's already a ridiculously large amount. Now, what's pretty crazy about Honkai Star Rail though is that energy recharge from items actually affects all sources of energy a character generates themselves. So that 86 energy that we're generating there, which we've calculated, so the energy from the light cone, the energy from her Eidolon, the energy from everywhere is actually just multiplied by energy recharge on gear. So you can see here I got 19.4 on this link rope. It's actually 19.44. It's just hiding the extra decimal place. And that multiplies against all the energy recharge. Now there's also a set in the game called the Sprightly Von Whack, which unfortunately I don't have an energy recharge set of, but if you actually did, we can see what happens here. So 19.44 and 5%, that would be times 1.244. And the result here is really close to 110. You can see it's 106.984. And that is just really crazy. So without any other interference, Silver Wolf's just base kit here, if you had Eidolon 1 and the enemy had 5 debuffs on them, or 4 before the ultimate, is almost just going nuclear. She is almost using a skill and an ultimate every single turn. So when it comes to this specific example, Silverwolf is missing roughly 3 energy. That's all you're missing, 3. Now, if you wanted to get that right now and you wanted to mess around with it and have fun with it, there's a few places you can get with this. So you could put her next to a tank and have her hit every single action, but that's not very consistent or very realistic, unfortunately. You could have her get a kill. That is definitely a little bit more realistic, but it is definitely not consistent, especially in endgame when Memory of Chaos is really hard. You could also just play her in Simulated Universe. There's a lot of energy buffs in there, so you can get some pretty funny results if you have this setup. That does work, but you know, that's not the hard end game that we're probably looking for. So what are the consistent ways? Well, you can use the shared feeling light cone as discussed earlier if you have S3 or higher, but you know, you have to spam your healer's skill every single action, which isn't great, and it's going to make it very skill point intensive, so that's not the best. You could, in theory, use quid pro quo. Unfortunately though, in this specific example with the Eidolon Silverwolf, she actually is never below 50% energy, so this one unfortunately isn't an option for this one either. So what else is left? Well, there is one other option. It is very RNG, but it is probably the only option which I would personally consider using myself, and that is Carve the Moon and Weave the Clouds. So this is the last source of energy recharge that you can get in the game to get the final 3 energy that Silverwolf needs to go nuclear. And it's a 1 in 3 chance to gain a temporary buff which grants your entire team 6% energy recharge. Now this could be good, it could get you the nuclear state you're looking for, but it is RNG, and unfortunately you're not going to be able to get it consistently as the buff rotates very quickly. Now I don't actually know how this light cone works specifically. It's possible you might be able to use multiple of it and achieve multiple of the buffs at a time consistently, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so you guys would have to test that out yourself. But this is also another option. But the point is, there's no easy way right now to get the energy recharge you need for Silverwolf to go absolutely nuclear. So she is going to be probably a pretty interesting thing to look into in the future. And what is the takeaway here? Well, if you were considering pulling for Silverwolf at Eidolon 0 and you wanted her and you were on the fence about it, just know that outside of anything to do with her kit, which is very strong, she does have the potential to go absolutely subatomic nuclear in the future if you were to double down on her banner rerun. So let's say you pulled E0 now and you're like, the rerun's coming up. Do I want to pull Eidolon 1? Well, chances are she's probably going to be absolutely ridiculous by that point due to the fact that this is just so close to being busted. So what would it take? It would take a mere 3 energy to push her over the edge and take her into the ridiculous territory. So right now, we do not have a main set which has energy recharge on it. I think this is probably the most likely scenario that will break her. If we get a main set which has 5% energy recharge or even 4% energy recharge as a 2-piece or a 4 set, it's gonna be over. She's gonna be using it every single action, and that's pretty much the way it's gonna go. Another option would be a new planar set on the 2 set here, which is better than Sprightly Von Whack, although I think that's unlikely, or another character who can grant energy passively as a bonus. Those would all tip Silverwolf into the crazy territory. So if you're on the fence about her, there's some extra info to tantalize you even more, I suppose. I definitely don't recommend blowing everything you've got on her. Eidolon 0 is going to be just fine and just good. Treat her as a bit of an investment though in the future if you want to pull on her rerun would be my advice. So what else we got in the tank here? What about that Kafka, and what about free to play? Well, let's cover that next. Alright, so the main application for free-to-play players for this busted new light cone in the Nihility path is, in my opinion, gonna be Pela. So Pela is a character which you should be able to get your hands on, you know, either from the Sele banner on 1.0 or in the future, if you're going for Luocha, she's on there as well. And she is an absolutely absurd character. She's great defensive typing, but most importantly, she had a big problem. And that problem was being able to keep her skill and ultimate debuff up. So right now, you can see her ultimate lasts for 2 turns. Now that was previously a pretty big issue, so you couldn't reliably keep her defense reduction up very often because you at best could use a like skill basic kind of rotation there and use your ultimate every 3 actions, which was a little bit unfortunate. But now with the new light cone, it's very easy to not only get a 2 action rotation, but get a 2 action rotation using only basic attacks, which I'm about to show you guys here in a second. But what that means is that as a free-to-play player, if you have Pela, you get a defense shredding, AoE breaking, basic attacker, which is generating skill points for your team. Now, the cool thing is she is ice, and that is an insane breaker, but it's also going to be an insane crowd control asset. A lot of people are already doing Memory of Chaos 10 without a healer thanks to Pela, and she just got a massive buff for free-to-play players. This is huge. So it's very, very strong. Now, the reason this works with Pela and to get the 2-action rotation is first and foremost, her ultimate costs 110, which is pretty low. But in addition to that, her talent grants a ton of energy. Now, where Silver Wolf gets her idol on 1, Pela gets that similar effect, but for free thanks to her talent here. So combining the talent, which grants energy whenever she attacks a debuffed enemy, with the light cone, with the normal energy gets, multiply that all by energy recharge, you get 2 basics equals an ultimate, which is very, very strong. Now, of course, you need to be able to shred the enemy's defense. Now, fortunately for Pela, her ultimate, which is now up 100% of the time, shreds defense. And also her entry technique, which you can use on entry every single time, also shreds defense. So there's never a scenario in which you're not getting full energy. So let's use the ultimate here and bask in the glory of energy recharge here. So using the ultimate is going to net us a ton of energy back. Look at that. Use a basic and we're almost got our ultimate back already. Now we're going to go quickly around the bend here. We did get hit there, but I can assure you we would have had enough energy recharge anyway to get the ultimate back up. I might even show you guys another round here so we can use the ultimate here again and again, and it just keeps coming back up ridiculously fast, which is exceptionally powerful. Of course, as you guys would know, ultimates are the strongest abilities on these characters, and Pela is no exception here. We can keep going around and getting that ultimate, and the energy recharge is quite frankly ridiculous. So that's a really good application for free-to-play players as well. Now, to finish things off, I figured I'd touch on this character's partner in crime, that is Kafka. So, Kafka is a character that is also Nihility, and she'll be able to take advantage of the light cone as well. Now, I'm not going to say that she's probably going to be using it as her best in slot or anything like that, but she's certainly going to be able to use it. In past betas, Kafka has been all about her ultimate. It has been the big thing about her, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So getting to the ultimate faster is going to be the name of the game. And with that, you're probably going to want to look into an angle in which you might want to use energy recharge. And if you can shred the enemy's defense some way, you're going to be able to get an extra amount of energy with the light cone we've been talking about. Now, what's particularly interesting about Kafka, though, is that she actually has a lot more attacks than your average character. She has her skills, which she'll be using, her ultimate, which she'll be using. Those will all trigger the extra energy from the light cone. But she also, in the past, has had a follow-up attack, which she gets to trigger every single action she takes, which means she's going to be getting even more value from the light cone. So when she actually attacks, she's going to have a follow-up attack, so she's going to get 8 energy on the skill, 8 energy on the follow-up attack, and then if you use another skill, you get 8 energy from that, and then another follow-up attack, 8 energy again, and then an ultimate, another 8 energy. So you can trigger it 5 times in theory per rotation for Kafka, and likely shorten a 3 or a 4 turn rotation down to a 2 turn rotation, which could be pretty damn broken if Kafka ends up scaling exceptionally well with using her ultimate. So I definitely think there's going to be some room for Kafka using this light cone as well if you're interested in experimenting. The overall message here for you guys is do not miss out on this light cone. Make sure to do the event. Make sure you get it to superposition 5. It's very important, and if you've been taking a break, come back and do the event if it's the only thing you do. And if you've got a friend who's thinking about starting Star Rail, tell them to start now and do the event, because once this event ends, it looks like the light cone is going away for good with it, and you absolutely don't want to miss out on it. It is broken, so tell them to start up an account and get the light cone as well. It's broken. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something new, and until next time, make sure to subscribe and like if you want to support the channel, but until then, cheers.